So all the data has not been shared with the fans or the proper agencies that would have something to say. And we all would have something to say. It's just about communicating what's been going down. Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming back for another edition of Foul Ball Safety Now Talks. I'm with Brianna Ludwig, my co-host.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm happy to be here.
Great, terrific. We're excited to bring our guest on shortly as people who've been listening get that we bring guests on who then bring us the questions. So the tables are turned, they're prepared with questions. Some of our guests are big baseball fans, some of our guests are not. They're intellectually curious to learn about this matter and then come back to us with questions. So we're excited. I want to get to some news. As we get into September, we are reflecting upon what's happened this year and what's going to continue to happen in the future if there's no intervention. Balls hurting people on the inside, balls hurting people on the outside of ballparks, inside the ballparks and outside the ballparks. I think that the video that we have called Exhibit A from 2019, we need to demonstrate that when this video aired back in 2019, 700,000 people actually saw the video. And it's now over 6 years later since this video aired, and there's still 30 to 40 ballparks that are still operating business as usual with lack of nets past end of dugouts. So I feel like that's really bad. It really does not tell the fans that they're respected. It really says that they've been disrespected, that fans can continually come and sit in some of these sections 6 years after the video aired in 2019. And I just want to make it known that this is going to eventually have to be dealt with. It should be dealt with now. Those teams, those 30 to 40 teams, their seasons are either ending this week or just ended. So another time, another opportunity to finally address what's obviously wrong. Every ballpark really does need personal attention to determine where the nets should be, how high, far, and wide. But clearly, the video from 2019 demonstrates that no human being should be exposed to these line drives, and why business as usual in 2025 allows what you see happening in 2019 is really, something we're going to all have to question and deal with at some point in time. We're trying to bring this issue to light. And then balls flying outside ballparks, we're going to follow up with the Queens College investigation, which you can see at Foul Ball Safety Now. That was with the whistleblower student athlete who contacted me, who felt stressed because they, amongst themselves, were wondering who would be the one to hurt or crush or do worse to a child. If people Google Earth, Queens College baseball, you'll see next to the baseball field is an elementary school, and these college students are worried that they're going to hit a kid. Understandable. So we wrote 2 letters to the Queens College administration and the public school. We got a response from the first letter. We followed up with a second letter in late July. No responses of yet. But it's not so unique that balls are flying outside ballparks, not only at Queens College, but the 169 other professional ballparks where there's usually only one tier, so balls will fly outside over the sides. And it could be 5 to 15 balls in a 3-hour period, which are raining down on the sidewalk or on the car or the window or sometimes somebody's head. Like, unfortunately, in Modesto, California, where we were contacted by a law firm a couple of months ago before their trial. A woman was outside the ballpark in Modesto waiting to go in. This was in the summer of 2023. And she was struck in the head, and now she can't work. So she's got some problems. We learned that that case was settled, but the people in Modesto may have not heard about it. We created a tab on the website to demonstrate to the people that are visiting the website 3 letters we had written to the Modesto newspaper over the summer, not just about the woman who got struck outside the ballpark from 2 years ago, but they were also one of the teams of this corporation who owns many teams who did not extend netting, similar to the way you saw the video in 2019 in some of those exposed areas where kids are really, really in danger. So, all right. So that being said, we're just trying to put things in front of people to see. We're excited to bring on our guest for today. She's a musician, she's an artist, and it was nice to speak with her a few days ago. And we're looking forward to hearing her questions for us in a few minutes or as of now. So let's introduce Peggy Scamal. How are you, Peggy?
I'm good. How are you both?
We're doing good. We're doing great. We're excited to hear what you've discovered about foul ball safety now and anything you want to bring to us. The floor is yours.
Yeah, well, being a musician, I'm not in the world of baseball much. I just live in Los Angeles and, of course, hear it from the congratulations side of being world champion Dodgers here.
That's
Uh,
true.
and so it was very eye-opening to see all this because I've never heard of this issue at all, and it's pretty serious, I think. I have a kind of a question for you both, just a personal one. Like, how did you get initially interested in this issue? Were you affected personally? Did you play baseball and witness this?
Brianna certainly can jump in a minute, but what I have been doing for the last 6 years after seeing something on the news, a very disturbing video of a little girl getting hurt, I've been, I guess, championing the cause for the last 6 years, trying to keep up with findings and research and working with a journalist by the name of Brendan for 6 years. I'm a huge baseball fan. That was my number 1 sport growing up. Ironically, 20 something years ago in Brooklyn, New York, I was outside a ballpark with a group of people where the Brooklyn Cyclones play, and a young person who was with us in the group that day gets hit right in the forearm standing right outside the ballpark. And I thought that was kind of bizarre. I just felt like it was long overdue to finally address these issues. And I've been trying to track these issues and call out who's responsible for not making sure that baseball is a safe environment. Right now, it clearly is not. And people may say, well, there's been improvements. Improvements are okay, but are they really solutions? And when are we going to finally get in a room and come up with the solutions? I know they're there, and I'm looking forward to finally getting the right people in the room. We're 3 people, but we believe that people listening will get committed to going where the conversation needs to go. And finally, recognize that maybe baseball has been doing business incorrectly for all these years, and it's time to finally address the matter. So that's my story. Brianna, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, so I met Jordan about a year ago. We're probably approaching a year, or maybe we've passed it by now, but he was
He was
looking for journalism students to organize conferences with other journalism students in an effort to get more written pieces on this issue. I studied creative writing in college, so I was just curious and drawn to the post and got on a call with him, and he had me watch Exhibit A, which is on the website at foulballsafetynow.com. It's a very powerful video that ESPN did in 2019, kinda highlighting a couple of victims and their stories, and I could not watch that video without crying, especially the children's stories because I'm a mom, and so I also was just so shocked that this happened, and I'm in LA as well, Piggy, where we, of course, have the Dodgers, and it's sort of a rite of passage. You bring the kids to the ballpark, and my son is very young, so I was always looking forward to bringing him to the ballpark, and the more that I've worked with Jordan and become really intimate and familiar with this issue and so many of the victims' stories, I know that I can never take my son to a baseball game in good faith. It just would not be moral or safe thing to do. So we've just been doing all types of work together from research to communications. And it's just the deeper you go down the rabbit hole, the more insane it gets from how shielded the MLB is from taking any action on this issue, accountability or responsibility. At first, it seems impossible to imagine, especially because the MLB's persona in the media is this fun, family-friendly environment, and it takes even I, who wasn't a baseball fan, it took a little while for that to sort of fade away and for me to really be able to see it for what it was. Yeah, I guess that's how I got started with Jordan, and I've been working with him ever since.
Uh-huh. That's fascinating. I'm sure there are lawsuits from these families or these victims. I would guess, aren't there? Personal injury lawsuits. So when these come forward to the ball franchises or whoever they would go to, what happens? What happens to these victims? What's their first step? And are they getting payment? Are they getting anything?
Right. So baseball has it figured out because they realize that it's inevitable that balls will come and hit people. People, all they have to do who are listening is go to Exhibit A1, which is a publication called 538 put out something in 2019, which demonstrates how many balls fly into seats. So it's almost equivalent to how many rocks are gonna come down from buildings. They know this in advance, where how many statistically that thousands upon thousands of balls will be entering the seats, and they realize that doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that eventually somebody's gonna get seriously injured, and they do. But baseball has something, a shield called the baseball rule. That's been in effect for more than 100 years. So if somebody is hurt by a baseball, they have little recourse because most lawyers aren't going to invest 20 or 30 hours worth of work because they may not get their case heard because most states recognize the baseball rule. So it's tough to find an attorney in most states if you've been injured by a foul ball. So they're not telling you in advance, in big letters or in, let's say, a memo, one pager or a two pager. They're not sharing this stuff with you over the winter about what you can expect in the spring or summer. Now, if you can look closely on your phone and you'll see a little disclosure when you purchase a ticket, you'll see something that says that the teams will not be held responsible if you get injured. And then when you get to the game, you're actually at the game already with your little darlings. It may be even a sign right in front of your seat where the cup holder is to tell you, be careful of a foul ball. But as far as I know, we're not superheroes. So once we're there, and then we see these announcements while our butts are in the seats, I'm not really sure what people will do then. They'll probably stay for the 3 hours. Even if there's one of those thousands of balls that come close to you and almost takes off your head, people usually don't leave. They think it's still fun. Until it happens to you or someone in your row, you're not really affected. Obviously, there's a lot more near misses than direct hits, but it's not fair to the families to not be informed over the winter months about what the true reality is. And if they were, I think agencies would have gotten the memo long ago and said, "Wait a second, baseball sharing this one pager with the fans, we need to do some more." And, I'm happy to follow up with you there, Peggy, but just
Yeah.
wanted to give you a sense of the the, uh,
Right.
the
Right.
underlying issues. Mhm.
Yeah, I guess so once you purchase your ticket. It's like you waive your rights to any injury once you enter the ballpark. Now, I'm curious, do other sports teams have this problem? Like, obviously, they don't have foul balls in football, but what about
Mhm.
other sports? Do they have disclaimers, rules, like if you get injured at the game, it's not their problem?
I can't really speak for all the sports. I know hockey had a situation. Unfortunately, a little girl died in 2002, hit by a hockey puck, and then they raised the nets vertically behind home plate. I mean, behind the glass, behind the goalie area. I'll get to what happened with Linda Goldblum, the woman who died at the Dodger game. She was behind home plate, one level up at the Loge at Dodger Stadium in 2018. She wasn't down the sidelines where the third and first base dugout ends. She was above the net, behind home plate where it went over the net, and the Dodgers took 1 year, and there may have been another 50 to 100 games of days where it could have happened to somebody else because they didn't extend the nets till about a year later. So that's where Mrs. Goldblum unfortunately died at Dodger Stadium behind home plate above the nets. The Dodgers did raise their nets above higher, vertically higher, but I don't know if the other 29 teams did. Each 30 ball, all of the 30 major league ballparks and 169 ballparks, they seem to have their own rules, and nobody is coming in
Mhm.
to decide or help, or insist where the nets need to be. They're unregulated.
Wow, that's eye-opening. Of course, we all heard about the parking lot brawl that happened at
Mhm,
Dodger Stadium, and
mhm,
that made the news,
mhm.
unfortunately.
Yes, terrible.
Um, but I had never, until today, heard
Yeah,
about that lady's passing for this, and so that's really disconcerting because I have my ear on to the news, I like to
right.
know what's going on, and so, my question is, okay, that's obviously a tragedy,
Yeah.
and so was the parking lot brawl a tragedy, but who is responsible for keeping these things quiet to the general public? With these big teams, do they say, "Well, we can't really release this that much to the public knowledge, but then we can release this." Have you had dealings with the public relations departments in ball teams? Um,
Well, with Linda Goldblum, the word didn't really get out till months later. The story was an ESPN guy wrote up about something about how many people may have died at major league ballparks or throughout professional baseball, and whose name was missing from that list was Linda Goldblum. And so the daughter was reading the article, Jana.
wow.
Yeah, and then she called the guy right away, and he was like, "What?" And he then wrote up something about it, but the general public in LA didn't really find out about it till months later, and then local news went over, the house to interview Irwin and Jana. Irwin was the widower, and Jana's the daughter, and we've interviewed them. They've been very gracious with their time with us. Irwin has actually showed up to 7 of our virtual press conferences. He came to every one of them, and he's been very generous with his time. He interviewed with Brendan and I as well. And Jana Brody wrote a book about her mom. People want to check it out. It's called Sit Behind the Nets. Powerful title for a book for somebody who lost their mom. So she wrote that book, and she does mention foul ball safety now in the book, which was very nice. I've been taking upon this conversation because I feel it's important. And so I'm glad they recognize that I'm doing some good things, but they had the greatest
Yes.
loss. They had the greatest loss.
So, when it comes down to
Yeah.
learning the sport when you're a kid, has any of this ever talked about to the actual players? Because I would think that the players would be pretty concerned if they're playing what they love to play and things happen and if they knew the statistics, like if they got
Yeah.
higher up into the sport, does anyone talk to the players when they're young about these foul balls?
Right. Unfortunately, it's almost like the workplace environment on what they can expect. They do know enough to tell their own parents to sit behind nets. You can see quotes in newspapers about that, and that's from the players in the aftermath of a high profile, a little child getting injured by a ball. So you'll hear them say something like, our own families are sitting behind the net. So that's a pretty
Mm.
powerful statement. Brendan and I have interviewed more than 30 baseball players. We haven't put out those interviews as of yet, but we know from our interviews with more than 30 baseball players, guys who've played professional baseball, some for the major leagues. Most of them played professional baseball in those 169 other cities, never made it to the big show, never made it to the MLB, but they told us time and time again that they told their own parents to sit in sections where they were protected, and that must be a conflict for the players when they tell their own families to sit in certain sections, and then they go to work knowing that maybe one of them will be the next one to do some serious damage, similar to what
Wow.
the Queens College players are feeling today. So, yeah, that's definitely an issue, and unfortunately, young adults are compromising their, I don't know, their soul in some way where they just wanna be major leaguers at any cost, and that's not good.
So the fact that the nets aren't being put up or they're not to par to stop these foul balls,
Right.
does it come down to money? Does it come down to visuals that they don't wanna have these big nets there? Where is the problem with this not being handled, in your opinion?
I clearly don't think it's about the money. I think, billions of dollars are funding this game. 30 MLB teams are worth many billions, $100 billion. Maybe they're all worth $3 billion each. Let's say they're worth between 50 and $100 billion. You
Mhm.
know, there's not a problem for them to invest in the lower leagues if it meant that people would be safe. Why aren't they addressing it and doing it in a way with agencies that are experts at telling you exactly how high instead of just them doing piecemeal upgrades themselves? As long as piecemeal upgrades continue, you're going to continue to find people getting injured. Even with nets, balls go over nets. And it's not up to us to decide how high, far, wide. It really should be outside agencies to determine that business is being done. It's never been satisfactory. It's never been right because, check out our injury report of foul ball safety now, just from what we put out in July of 2025, August 2025, about what we found so far just this year. And you can just see documented reports and how many kids we've chronicled that have been injured over the 6 years that we've been doing this. 2 children critically injured in the summer of 2023. A man blinded in Pittsburgh in 2023. And that's a major league ballpark, and where supposedly upgrades were finished at that point in time. I could take you through a timeline of, the dissatisfaction. I did that at the beginning of the podcast, beginning of our recording today.
Yeah.
Since that video aired from 2019 until now, it's not right. And, we have to keep on talking about addressing the teams where we can all go to games and know there's no unknown factors. We all know what we can expect, especially people that are bringing kids that are little.
It
Yeah.
sounds like there's no outside agency to make this regulation happen with the nets. Is that correct? You were
Yeah.
saying so for them to get an outside agency, this antiquated law has to be removed? That sounds
Yeah.
like what it is. This old law that's 100 some years old has to
Yes.
be taken out? Is that
Act of
how
Congress. Yes,
Yes.
gotta get rid of it, and gotta get and then
So
all of a sudden, business as usual wouldn't be going down because people in the management would know that people are getting injured. To answer your question about fans and being educated, baseball's been putting out information through their management that their fans may not be interested in netting, but at the same time, they possess the knowledge of serious injuries happening every single year. So why would they go out of their way and say, "Well, our fans aren't interested in having nets," regardless of what year it was, we can find quotes from management that have said things it could have been 2008 or 2012, where they've said, "Oh, our fans aren't interested in additional netting," but at the same time, they do possess more or less that report that we shared from 2019 that Brendan and I revisited, the 538 report, 538 report, which demonstrates just how many foul balls are going into these sections. So, in the wintertime, regardless of what your fans may say about upgraded netting, why don't you just share the data with them? Tell them what they can
Mhm.
expect. And then all the information's on the table. And then you have, okay, now the agencies are getting wind of this. And then maybe they're jumping in and saying, hey, not so fast. No more business as usual. We
Mhm.
know we have all the data. So all the data has not been shared with the fans or the proper agencies that would have something to say. And we all would have something to say. It's just about communicating what's been going down. And we
Mhm.
believe we can put all the unknown factors on the table
Mhm.
and start a genuine discussion about what should have been done then, what should be done now. And that's what we're trying to do. We not only interviewed 30 baseball players, but we've interviewed 20 victims and family members, people that have lost eyes. We shared with you Irwin and Jana, people that are never going to be the same because of what happened to them and their families.
I'm so glad that you're doing this because it's eye-opening for me, just standing on the sidelines. So, an act of Congress, meaning that there would have to be public support for this, correct?
Mhm.
To put it forward to Congress, then what happens? Then they vote on it? Then they
I hope we would hope that, people listening, whether they're lawyers out there who, clearly what I understand from my work with lawyers, it's about establishing a theory. So lawyers need to commit to say there's something wrong with the status quo. Clearly, we can do something immediately. For example, if I found an attorney in the beginning of August and there were 30 days left in the season, and I demonstrated to them after they watched the 5-minute ESPN production, Exhibit A, that this is a danger in their city. Would you show the judge in that town, in that city, that video? The judge may say, "Hey, I just saw this video and business as usual will not go down anymore. No more kids under 18." And
Mhm.
and that would be that. So you would hope that there's enough attorneys out there that can get something going on a local level where clearly fire in the theater is being demonstrated, where we just want to show you a video and tell you, yes, this is happening right here, right now in your town. That should have happened in 30 to 40 cities over the summer. It's tough to find attorneys. I have something on my website. It's a pro bono pop up, where we hope
Yep.
some attorneys are going to see this and call me and say, "Hey, we're going to sit in a room together and we're going to figure out how to go to court in our town based on what the state laws are." Right? Every state
Right.
operates differently. How do we get a judge to consider, banning, children from games? That would send a powerful message to the rest of the country.
Mhm.
There's 30 cities, a handful in Illinois, a couple of teams in New York that still don't have netting past end of dugouts. It's criminal. It's
Yeah.
really, really terrible that, this could really be happening where people just don't know. They haven't seen the video from 2019. And 6 years later, they're sitting ducks in the same places where these little kids were nailed in these videos from 2019 and before. So we're gonna keep it going. We're just trying to put things up on the website so listeners can find for themselves and they could see, everything we've done in the last 6 years. We try to put things out there, letters we've written to newspapers and to politicians, but there's so many people, certainly lawyers, who are baseball fans who have heard about this baseball rule because they usually get wind of this in law school. So they watching them, them as a community watching baseball on their couches while they're lawyers. And after they knew about the baseball rule, so they're informed like we are now more informed about the regular risks. So they should really be stepping up a little bit. They shouldn't be watching baseball on their couch.
Well,
So we want
with
them
all
to we want them to
yeah.
look at baseball in a different way like we're looking at it.
There's so many class actions out there. I mean, for God's sake, they're
Mhm.
suing Taylor Swift, Ticketmaster. This certainly is a bigger problem than all of that. So I'm
Mhm.
kind of astounded that they haven't formed a class action lawsuit against this whole. Well, I guess who would you sue? MLB? I don't know, but
Yeah, there's on a longer conversation we can get into it with you.
yeah,
I was in court in Illinois with a lawyer. I have more than 100 hours worth of lawyer fees because people who are smarter than me, who are legal people, I need to talk to with from time to time as consultants. And also, law school students have been helping me do research, learning how many cases have been filed over the years in different states. And it doesn't really scratch the surface because we may only find a few filings in one particular state, but there could be so many more that never made it out of their lawyer's office in that particular
right,
state because they didn't want to take the case. But people should check out the NBC study from a few years ago. Also came out in 2019, implied how many people were reported to first aid in a 7-8 year period. Brendan and I have documented close to 50 children that have been seriously injured by foul balls since 2008, head injuries mostly. And even this year, we're finding new ways to find injuries that we may have not looked at in the last 5 years. This year, with the help of a few people, we've been finding ways to get things. People are sharing their own injuries on social media, and we may have not used all those tools available to us in the last 5 years. This summer, we've been a little bit more, oh, wow, people are reporting their own injuries, and we're finding new ways to record things that may not be reported in newspapers and stuff like that. So
sure.
it's a continuation until baseball does like a Herculean effort when it addresses the fans who've been hurt in the past and gives them some sort of make them feel whole again kind of thing. And until
Mhm,
baseball makes a safer or at least a transparent, environment
mhm,
about what's
yeah.
really happening, then, we're going to have to keep it rolling, keep the conversation going. So this
Well,
is
thank
really
you, yeah.
impactful.
I
Yeah.
I I'm going to spread the word in my musical community because
Oh, we'd love that.
some are baseball ball fans, and,
Hey, if anyone wants to get stimulated and get on the line, maybe they'll come up with a piece.
right.
Like a few days later, they'll write us up something. This through song, through theater. I wrote a play with an NYU adjunct guy. It's another way of get this out. Yeah, like a 45-minute play. So we're in the first draft phase to do, some sort of theater expression about what this
Mhm.
is all about. And Charlie and I, his name is Charlie, we think alike on this matter. And so any collaboration or anyone who's inspired is welcomed. But Brianna may have a question for you, Peggy.
Sure.
That's actually a perfect leeway into my question. Peggy, as a musician, as an artist, how can we use music and art to process grief, to process tragedy, and also to shine a light on corruption?
Wow, well, in my opinion, art is the only way to really get change in the world because what we do is we tap into people's emotions and get them to think, hopefully, think in positive ways about issues. And uh, you see that happening with film, with songs, things like that. So I think if more of the artists that have a big platform, I don't know if I would be the person because I don't have a huge fan base, but I work with people that do. I see performers and filmmakers that do. And so one powerful mention of your cause or a documentary or something like that would be worth so much because that way it's not so much in your face like politics is. Art comes into you in a more of an intimate way, in my opinion, and so people can take that and think about it in a more receptive way. That's my opinion, and then they get the politics involved, then they vote on things, then you see change that way, but it has to start in the heart. It has to start with people feeling that this is not right. And art, movies, music, that's where we have that power to make people feel.
Terrific. Peggy Scommall, this is really nice that you joined us today, and we look forward to, further communication. Maybe there'll be a musician that learns about what we're doing and they're inspired to listen to some of our catalog of recordings and be inspired to just jump in on this conversation with us. And we're looking forward to bringing on more people who are concerned about how things have been going on and how they continue to go on.
Mhm.
So I think this was really great. So thanks again, Brianna and Peggy. And please, everyone, go to Foul Ball Safety Now, and you'll see things that won't take it too long to know that our instincts are to put everything out there so everyone can see, and you'll determine for yourself if we're doing things correctly or if we're going in the right direction. So we're excited for more conversations to come. So thank you, everyone, and everyone have a great
Thank you,
day.
Jordan. Thank you, Brianna.